Hello. And welcome. Elves. Elves are still taking over anime. Did you think that last time was a fluke? Nay, elves are here to continue their dominance throughout all anime. And that makes sense, as elves are as essential to fantasy as killing God, and the king marrying a woman half his age. Yeah, I'm making this a series. I have once again brought to you the elf-thirsting masses, a crop of anime featuring those lovable knife ears. Which is why you should join me as I continue my journey to discover the perfect anime. Oh, and all four of these are either isekai or reverse isekai, so just consider this to be this season's isekai video. Okay, starting with plus-sized elf. Ah yes, this is how I start my video. This is a legacy I leave behind. Now I got a lot of comments on my previous elf video hyping this one up, and gee, I wonder why. Y'all are about as subtle as I come. This is a reverse isekai starring Elphida, an elf. And yes, her name is Elphida, which would be like if the MC was named Beeplu. She tries to keep her identity undercover, but doesn't really do a good job at it. Elphida first shows up wearing a hat that says human on it. There's as much surprise that she's an elf as there was that I chose to watch this series. But she's not the only one from her world, as there's also the dark elf Kuroida giving us an extra serving of elves here, as well as a slew of other fantasy creatures that come a la carte with the same problem. You see, the real world has the fantasy kingdom of McDonald's, and after eating all that Jujutsu Kaisen sauce and french fries, Elphida begins to learn our magical spells, including cholesterol, obesity, triple bypass surgery, summon big booty elemental, exercise. I thought you said extended life. Now, I get the appeal to this series. It is also streaming uncensored on High Dive, but the ecchi isn't the only selling point, as the main character, Beeplu, works as a massage therapist and actually gives good exercise advice. Though, if I had to be honest, I prefer the other ecchi anime that went about like this more, that being how heavy are the dumbbells you lift. I mean, for one, this series is really short. Each episode is about 10 minutes if you take off the OP and ED. But hey, that just means that our double elf helping comes with all the fixings. Literally. Now, I have to admit, I might not be the target audience for this entirely. I don't exactly favor the curvaceous type, but I do favor the elvish type. Though there's no shame in Elphida and the rest of the cast wanting to work on improving themselves, even if they are subject to their own impulses. I mean, we all gained some weight a few years back. And hey, if Elphida is just the elf for you, I totally get it. This anime is completely harmless in its own right, which is why I give it an elf rating of the covetous demon out of Praetor Rayearth. I wonder if there's another ecchi series that High Dive has with shorter length episodes streaming too. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no! Fear not, as we have Failure Frame, I became the strongest and annihilated everything with low-level spells, which is a title larger than the previous elf I was talking about. It all begins with Toka and his entire class being isekai'd into this world that just sucks. I mean, everything here sucks. The real world sucks for Toka, his classmates suck, the ones who don't suck are few and far between. The people of this world suck, and the goddess who summoned them is a filthy gacha addict like myself, and wanted to do multiple 10 pulls at a time, getting some nice SSRs, but at the same time landing utter cannon fodder, that being Toka himself. Being the true gacha gamer she is, she uses him as fusion material, and by that I mean she sends him right to Blighttown. Why? Because he has the worst skills imaginable. Yeah, this is one of those isekai. I have the worst skill until I prove it's actually really powerful. In fact, I'm overpowered now. You might not know this genre yet, but your kids are gonna love it. And I gotta admit, it is a bit unfortunate that our MC here has a standard name and not a name on the same caliber as Fate Graphite, who is the MC of the last anime I watched like this. However, I think I'm enjoying this one more, because unlike Berserk of Gluttony, we've got an elf in this anime. That being Ceres Ashrain, who is a princess knight fleeing for her life until she meets Toka, the only character who doesn't want to do do unspeakable things to her. She was under disguise as a normal human named Mist Balakis until it's revealed she's been an elf the entire time. I mean, Mist Balakis, that's your alias? That's like if Toka walked around saying his name was Beep Blue. I have to admit, it's a bit difficult to accurately categorize and give Ceres a proper elf rating. 6 episodes in, and we just recently started seeing her form a party with Toka. And each time you think she's going to do something cool, Toka steps in and unleashes all his status ailments, which are busted in how overpowered they are. However, that wasn't always the case. Buddy, are you lucky that worked out in your favor? But if anything, that just makes them a pretty solid duo. They can relate over how much this world sucks and everyone wants them dead. And while the rest of Toka's class are busy trying to get stronger so they can defeat the demon lord that the goddess is forcing them to do, Toka's just focused on getting his revenge, and he's straightforward in that being his goal. There's no mystery about him, and if you're going to have an edgy protagonist, then just go with it. Don't pull back all the way when you're knee-deep into Season 1 and turn him into a bog-standard isekai protag. And despite how rough the animation can be at times, I am enjoying this anime overall, even if our resident elf hides that side of her much of the time. It looks like now we're getting further into her backstory, and I'm looking forward to seeing what more we can learn about her, so that brings Failure Frame's elf rating to an unlockable version of Link out of no new Legend of Zelda characters since Brawl. But now it's time to go back to the long-forgotten land of 1994, as I have another classic anime elf that has been discovered. That's right, we're going back to the dawn of civilization. Humanity was developing out of Mesopotamia, and all we had was and Weezer, as there's a great isekai fantasy series from the mid-90s known as Magic Knight Rayearth. It's about these 3 Japanese teenage girls who get isekai'd all together through teleportation magic. I've always thought this was a weird way to get isekai'd. There's no warning to it whatsoever and no trigger like being hit by a truck. Imagine seeing something like that happen out of public. The 3 girls are Hikaru Shido, Umi Ryuzaki, and Fu Huoji. Yeah, that's right. Back in the days, isekai used to be a predominantly female-led genre. As compared to nowadays, where you get isekai like Failure Frame, they're transported to the world of Sephiroth and become the Magic Knights as they seek to confront the High Priest Sagato and end his reign of terror and bring peace to the world. But that's not what I'm gonna focus on, as the main elf of this series shows up in its 2nd season, that being Nova. Okay, I guess the 1st season had Inova, but he's a male elf, so who cares? Nova is really unique when it comes to Anime Elves, as she's actually an antagonist heavily fixated on Hikaru and has a rather mysterious connection to her. I'm not gonna explain what it is here, but let's just say that when Nova shows up, shit's going down. She also manages to represent a big shift between the 2 seasons of this series, as Season 1 is much more akin to the fantasy isekai we've come to expect, but Season 2 is full-on sci-fi. Yeah, there are mechs in this isekai. Isekai also used to have a lot more mechs because mechs were in pretty much every anime. Man, this anime has just about everything. Fantasy, sci-fi, magical girls, awesome armor and swords, spaceships. It's ordering more from the menu than Elphida does. Anyway, Nova's whole existence is to defy everything that Hikaru believes in and stands for, and if I'm going to be completely honest, she's never outright stated to be an elf. But I mean, just look at her. That's an elf right there. The elf delegation drafts Nova. And all that matters to her is destroying everything Hikaru loves, including her.
I lovingly rip apart her little body. I hope it's soon.
Man, she's fun at parties. I've really enjoyed Nova and Magic Knight Rayearth as a whole. It was a lot of fun to watch, and to be completely honest, the main reason I decided to check it out is because recently, for its 30th anniversary, a new anime project has been announced for it. Heh, that's wild. Imagine turning 30 this year. Go brush your teeth, I can smell you from here. I highly recommend Magic Knight Rayearth. It's held up exceptionally well, and I give Nova an elf rating of giving the main character her own Evangelion moment. However, if you prefer to stick to your basics when it comes to isekai, then the next anime has our handy old reliable Truck-kun serve the important role of hero transport in No Longer Allowed in Another World. The MC here, Sensei, was about to do, how do I say this while adhering to YouTube's guidelines? Roblox oof sound himself and his lover, only to suddenly become an isekai protag. And not only is Truck-kun responsible for isekai and Sensei here, you see, in the magical land of Zuckerberg. Man, I was so close. Isekai transport is a time-honored tradition and the most respectable of careers to have. Zalberberg needs otherworlders. It needs heroes, which is where the truck drivers Isekai Transport Union comes in handy. I'm pretty sure this is a world where Jimmy Hoffa was Isekai too, except it appears that they've gone overboard on this since the Demon Lord has already been defeated and now this world is overrun and harassed by the same heroes meant to save it, forcing the citizens to engage in meaningless rap battles. Man, if only Kongming was here. But despite the average isekai protag being set on a path of greatness and glory, Sensei doesn't really want any of that. He just wants to find out what happened to his lover and commit upside down Pepsi again. Despite his hesitation to do much of anything, we have Annette, the elf of this story, one of many in this series, to drag him along the path. Literally. Like he just lays in a coffin while she and the cat girl Tama drag him everywhere. This reminds me of the legendary hero is dead, except this anime is actually good. The MC isn't focused on fighting the Demon Lord, who doesn't exist. He doesn't really have any motivation other than to commit double skull emoji. And Zalberberg is overrun with all these isekai scumbags. As it turns out, he ends up being the necessary weapon to fight the former heroes of this world. Each isekai protag is given their own skill, and his involves sending others back to the real world. That's such a cool premise, and it ends up making Annette even more likable as an elf. She's constantly criticized for putting up with someone who doesn't care about her, the world, or anything else really. Sensei's too busy smoking cigs to fight enemies, but the fact that smoking is really bad for you ends up working out in his favor, as he uses poison as his main weapon like the MC of the second anime I covered in this video. You gotta give Annette credit for hauling him all throughout the world, and it ends up paying off for everybody. I mean, just look at him. Would this be someone you'd want to form a party with? My man has a constitution of 1. Probably plays a bard in Baldur's Gate 3. He looks like the kind of guy who's over 100,000 Reddit karma. I have over 100,000 Reddit karma. He looks like the kind of guy who has over 200,000 Reddit karma. I just wish Annette got more credit for her services. Not only is she carrying the main character, she's providing funds for his self-destructive tendencies, and then when he wants to write a story about his time in this world, he won't even write her in it. Don't worry, Annette. I'll make sure to make it up to you by giving you an elf rating of 4 goth kids from South Park, because that's what the main character reminds me of. I do think this is a pretty cool premise for an isekai for sure. And it brings us one step closer to finding the perfect anime. Hey, thanks for watching. There's actually a solid amount of Anime Elves this season, so we're eating good lately. And here's the updated Venn diagram featuring the elves I covered here. My first elf anime video did really well and was my most viewed video for some time, so I want to make this a recurring series. Not going to make an elf video every season since it depends on how many elves we get after all, but I do want to throw in a classic anime elf when I do make these. And if you enjoy this video, then be sure to sub for more frames. I'm on my way to find out how to join the Isekai Transport Truckers Union. It's probably in the Midwest somewhere, so thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.